Hey, what's happening? YouTubers back another versus matchup, and today it's a battle of DC Multiverse figures and the battle of the brands, as we have the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Shazam movie figure based on an appearance in the upcoming Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods versus the Mattel DC Multiverse Shazam 1 movie figure. But before we begin, yes, I know the suits are different when compared from the first movie and the second movie, but the designs are sort of similar. You might notice the MoffX one missing from this comparison because I don't think it's a fair comparison because one, MoffX is an import company, and that figure was going anywhere between $60 to $100, whereas these two were going for $20 at retail. But I did want to give an honorable mention to the basic figure from Mattel that came out on the same time the movie did. This was more in their like 6-inch scale, like a true 6-inch figure, but it was from their basic series line. I still think it looks nice for what it was. I think these were going for about $10 at the time, and you can complete the whole Shazam family, which I thought was cool. And also, I kind of preferred this figure as opposed to the DC Multiverse one in terms of proportion, because I think that's what Zachary Levi's Shazam looked like in the movie, as opposed to this one, which was a little bit slender. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, now we got him out of the way, let's go and compare the figures. So if y'all have seen my versus matchup videos before, I usually judge it on 3 criterias: articulation, accessories, and sculpt. Now, first category I want to go over is articulation. Well, some of y'all might say, oh, Mattel's got this in the bag because McFarlane Toys can't really articulate well. Not quite true, because if you didn't check out my review for this figure, shameless plug, he can actually articulate pretty well. The one thing I'll say, though, is when we take a look at the Mattel one, it had a lot of points of articulation, which was cool. It had all the basic stuff, but it had this different engineered system, which I hadn't seen before, whereas it looks like a diaphragm joint, and it kind of is, but the only thing is it rocks back and forth. And as you can see there in the cut, it can't go from side to side, so it's limited in that respects. But it does have the waist cut if you wanted to use it as well. It just seems kind of repetitive that we're kind of, silly that you wouldn't have side to side on here. Another thing this figure has, thigh cut. Something that the McFarlane Toys one doesn't have, unless it's one of those figures that's riding on a vehicle. When comparing it to McFarlane Toys figure, it still has all the basics that this Mattel does. The only thing is the diaphragm joint is a little bit limited, because you can't really go back and forth. Well, you can go back a lot. Can't really go forward that much, but with the ball joint at the waist, or at the hip, I should say. So if we were to compare it, it actually has a solid range of motion going forward when compared to the Mattel one, if I can just go ahead and do that. Yeah, so it's pretty similar actually when comparing it to the Mattel one. Now, with the ability to kick the leg out, this is where that rubber diaper piece comes into play, because you can clearly see he can get his leg kicked out like that. Now, whether that looks good aesthetically is another thing, but when comparing it to this one, like I said, it's hard moving this thing forward. It was like stiff, but it actually has the same amount of leg kick as the Mattel. Now, after all that being said, for the McFarlane Toys version, I have to give it to the Mattel version. Even though the articulation is mainly comparable to what Mattel offered, Mattel still gave us that thigh cut. And in my opinion, that's more intricate to a figure's articulation, more so than the toe joint. But let me know what you think in the comments below. To me, that thigh cut is definitely the winner for me and what sells the Mattel over the McFarlane Toys. Don't get me wrong, this can still articulate well. It just would have been nice if it had a thigh cut as well. So articulation round goes to Mattel, and the score is 1-0 Mattel. Now, next category, accessories, is going to be short and sweet. Main reason being, they both didn't really come with that many accessories. However, Mattel gave us 2 additional sets of hands, which is nice, but that's all they gave us. No additional head sculpts, no effect pieces, just that. They came with a fisted hand, gripping hand, and a set of flight hands with the open hands. That was nice. However, McFarlane Toys gave us an additional set of hands. I guess they're kind of like pointing or effect hands, and also the electrical effects, which is nice for both arms and hands. They also, I know you guys don't like this, they also gave us a base plate and a trading card. For that reason, more accessories on McFarlane Toys' side. They win this round. Score this round for McFarlane Toys. So it's now tied 1-1. So with this versus matchup being tied 1-1 going to the third round, we have sculpting. This is what's going to take it. Now, for some of y'all out there, sculpting can be subjective. You can think this looks good as sculpt or that looks good, but there's no denying both have great sculpts. One could argue that both figures stay true to the source material when looking at the designs in the movies. They both have the intricate pattern and sculpting on the suits. They both have the gold trims on their cape/cloak. The emblem is designed the way it should be as it was in the movie. Although I will say it looks like the McFarlane Toys one might be a little bit smaller, but I know the lightning bolt emblem is smaller in the movie for the second one. While they're both respectable in sculpt and detail, the one thing I'm going to have to judge this on is face sculpt. For its time, the Mattel one looked very nice. To me, it still pales in comparison when compared to the McFarlane Toys head sculpt. I did a poll recently back when I first got that Shazam movie figure from McFarlane Toys, and a lot of people picked the McFarlane Toys one over the Mattel one. For the people that picked the Mattel one, I totally get it. I understand. It does have his likeness, but what ruined it for me was when I put this poll up on Facebook, somebody said he looked like Stephen Colbert, and I can't unsee that now in the Mattel one. He does kind of look like Stephen Colbert. However, the McFarlane Toys one has better sculpting when it comes to the face. If you don't think so, just take a look at Zach Levy in this photo right here and compare it to the figures. With that being said, McFarlane Toys has the nod when it comes to sculpting. Another thing that sold me on the McFarlane Toys having the better sculpt is the overall aesthetic of Shazam. When you look at Shazam and Zach Levy's body in the movie, he looks more similar to McFarlane Toys than he does to the Mattel. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a sneak peek if you didn't catch it, that basic figure had a better aesthetic and proportion than the Mattel one. The Mattel one looks like he's just a skinny cosplayer when you compare it how he should look in the movie. With the McFarlane Toys one, you can definitely tell it's a lot more buff and looks better in proportion than the Mattel one. So with that being said, McFarlane Toys wins 2-1 over Mattel. But let me know what you think in the comments below, YouTubers. Which Shazam movie figure do you think is better? And are you going to see Shazam 2 this weekend? Let me know in the comments below. And like always, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.